We are here to welcome our guest, Tomasz, Community Building Development Lead from Reset, which is a Comets partner. Hello, Tomasz.
Hi there.
Could you tell us about Reset?
Yeah, of course. So at Reset, we are a charity. We're based in the UK, and we specialize in all forms of community-led welcome. That means any setting, any situation where volunteers or community groups come together to welcome refugees into their homes, into their communities. So at the moment, we're in particular involved in community sponsorship. So that's a program we're set up to deliver, and in that we offer training, support, and advice to community sponsorship groups all across the UK. We've also been involved in another program called Homes for Ukraine, where people accept Ukrainians into their homes. And again, we primarily offer training, offer support to those hosts to know how to navigate, so building the relationships with the people they host, and sort of navigate any challenges that come up.
And what do you do specifically for Comet?
So in the Comet project, our role is around delivering training, delivering workshops. So we're using some of our expertise, in particular around community sponsorship, to share it with other partners, to share it with host communities in different countries involved in Comet. So we've just started a series of training sessions or workshops focusing on different themes and topics around welcoming refugees, around supporting refugees. So yeah, that's what our role is for Comet.
And who are the communities to be trained?
So when it comes to the communities, that kind of varies, to be honest. It now ranges from it being some of the volunteers. It could be professionals working with refugees. What I've learned from Comet is that in every country things are being done slightly differently. In every country, so welcoming refugees means something slightly different. Every program is slightly different. But even in the countries when there is community sponsorship, how it looks is a little bit different. And so we've learned that for this to work, we need to be quite flexible and so open up our training to different groups. And so the host communities that we talked about are also quite different. So it could be professionals supporting refugees in different settings, sometimes in reception centers, sometimes refugees living in communities. It could be volunteers. It could be community groups. So all sorts of different people and different groups.
And what are the steps in preparations of the trainings?
That's a very good question. So I think there are a couple of things. Early on, and so before we developed the training offer, I met with every single partner. So we did that alongside other Comet partners, so alongside Associazione Frantz Fanon and alongside Mosaico. We met with every single partner to sort of find out a little bit more about the way they do things and what would be most useful for them. From there on, I sort of leaned on my own experience and our experience of Reset and sort of experience of my colleagues to identify some of the key themes we would like to address. And again, so using different expertise within Reset. So I deliver some of the training sessions. Some of the training sessions will be delivered by my colleagues who have more expertise in those subjects, like, for example, trauma-informed support session I delivered this week was presented by my colleague Hannah, who is our expert on the subject. So we're basing it very much on our own expertise. But also what is really important to me, and also something that I've learned, is that within Comet, there's just so much experience and expertise. So for me, it's not just about, us telling everyone how things should be done or how things are done in the UK, but to a large extent, so bringing people together to talk about specific subjects, specific themes, specific topic, and share experiences, so exchange best practice and exchange advice that we all developed for our practice. And I think that's also an important part for the sessions we're running for COMET, is that sort of idea of bringing people together and having a space where people can exchange experience around specific topics that we address in that particular week.
And which are the most important information to transfer to communities?
That's a very big question. I like it. I think something that starts to come up from our first session. So we've only had 2 sessions so far. We have quite a few more scheduled, and I think what will be almost a recurring theme throughout the sessions we have is that balance between being welcoming, between supporting someone, between so making sure that the person we're welcoming feels comfortable and builds rapport with us, and not doing so much that we actually disempower those people. So balance between how we support someone, but how also we prepare them for independent life, we prepare them for the time when our support will end. How do we have conversations about the fact that the support we offer isn't going to be forever? And that's sort of almost that conflict about being welcoming, but also planning for the future and making sure that people are indeed independent. So I feel like that's something that is really important and a really difficult balance to navigate whenever we support people in any setting, whether it's professionals or communities. And I think that is something that we'll be addressing, not necessarily in just one session, but throughout different sessions, focusing on different themes and topics. So yeah, I think that's probably the most important thing to address.
I can imagine. Do you think it's the biggest challenge to face, or do you think there are other things that are challenging?
So I think the best starting point on this probably is that supporting refugees is sort of complex in very many ways. So this week we're talking about trauma and about supporting people who had traumatic experiences, which of course is very challenging as well. So I would say it's one of the complexities, but to me, and based on my own experience, is probably one of the most important one, alongside and leading to preparing for the end of support. So to me, that's a balance of how you support someone and how you make sure they are independent and growing in their independence is connected to how we prepare ourselves and how do we prepare those we support for the time when our service, our program comes to an end and they have to live independently. So in the community, those I think are some of the biggest challenges of supporting people who are very new to the country, supporting refugees.
And which are the questions that are asked by the communities during the training?
So I think it's worth saying that we're just starting those sessions. So there isn't a lot of experience to draw on here. But I think that some of the key questions were around the themes and that I already suggested. So like how do you so for example, when we were talking about initial weeks and months of support, and we were talking about building rapport with the refugees we support, some of the questions that came up is of how do I do that? How do I build rapport with those whom we support? And at the same time, have sort of one eye on the fact that this setting is temporary, that perhaps they only have 12 months in the reception center, and after that they'll have to figure things out on their own. How do we have those conversations while also attempting not to be unwelcoming? So those are some of the sort of key themes that came up, and I know this is something that I mentioned in the previous question as well.
And last questions, just something a little bit lighter. So far in the trainings you made, did you have any expecting or funny or surprising questions?
So funny questions, not that I recall, but I think it was what was maybe interesting and positive, I would say, is that realization that I suppose we all work in different contexts and in different countries and face slightly different challenges, but actually our work is quite similar, and a lot of the challenges we face are fairly similar. And maybe also that feeling, I think I'm taking us into a direction that maybe isn't quite funny or that surprising, but I think it's a little bit heartwarming, I guess, that across Europe and in many countries that participate in it, so the public turned slightly towards, almost hostility towards refugees, and having that space where we come together and realize that despite that hostility in a lot of our countries, actually we're all here, we're all working towards, helping refugees and welcoming them. I think that's really positive to me and gives me a lot of strength that there are just so many people sort of working against the political narrative, so closing the borders and being unwelcoming. I think to me that's what I take out of the sessions, and was like really, really positive, and maybe not quite funny or surprising, but that's something that came to my mind.